Part 2. Welcome to posting journal entries into the general ledger accounts. The essential outcomes for Chapter 4. You will be able to post business entries from the general journal to the general ledger by A. Identifying accounting concepts and practices related to posting from a general journal to a general ledger. B. Preparing a chart of accounts for a service proprietorship. C. Posting from a general journal to a general ledger. D. Proving cash. E. Connecting key terms in the chapter with the application. Welcome back to 4-2 accounting terminology. Posting. Posting is transferring information from a general journal entry to a general ledger account. There are 3 reasons for posting. A. An entry in an account can be traced to its source. An entry in a journal can be traced to where it was posted in an account. And this is probably the most important part. If posting is interrupted, the accounting personnel can easily see which entries in the general journal still need to be posted. It is now time to learn how to post amounts in our general journal into the correct accounts in our general ledger. Looking at line 1 of the general journal, we have a debit transaction for cash on August 1st. We now need to take this transaction and post it into the cash account in the general ledger. To do this, we will first write the date. The date is the same date listed in the general journal. Then we will write the general journal page number in the general ledger post reference column. G1, G stands for general journal. We will then carry down our debit transaction from the general journal into the cash account in the general ledger in the first debit transaction account column. So we write $5,000. Now it is time to determine our new account balance. Since cash is an asset, it increases on the left side. It makes the balance for the cash account a debit balance. So when you are recording balances in the cash account, you will never record a credit in the balance credit column. That is why there is a circle there telling you not to do that. So now our new balance, $5,000 plus 0, since this is our first entry in the cash account, our new debit balance will be $5,000. The last step is to go back to our general journal. In the post reference column, record the cash account number 110. Remember, this represents the fact that we have posted this into our general journal. Recording posting numbers in the general journal is the last step every time you record a transaction. We do not record all the post-reference account numbers at the start and then go post the entries, nor do we post the entries and then go back and record all our post-reference account numbers at the end. You must show posting as you go. So every time you record a transaction into the general ledger account, you must go back to the general journal and show that you posted it by recording the account number in the post-reference column of the general journal. If you are posting incorrectly, you will lose points. If that post-reference column is left blank, you will lose 1 point for each line that is left blank in the post reference column. Posting is extremely important. Now, we will learn how to record a credit amount in the general journal and learn how to post it into the general ledger. Looking at the second part of transaction 1 on line 2, we will see that we need to credit Kim Park Capital for $5,000. So we will go to our general ledger account, find Kim Park Capital, and then we will start recording this transaction from the general journal to the general ledger. So the first step is to record the date. Again, the date is the same date given in the general journal. We just carry that into our general ledger account for Kim Park Capital. Then we will record the post reference column, the general journal page number. In this case, it's G1 for general journal. We will leave the item column blank. We then will take the credit amount listed in the general journal and go to the capital account in the general ledger, and in the first credit column we will record $5,000. Then we need to record our new account balance. Since capital increases on the right side, then we know that our credit balance will be on the right side or a credit. So since this is our first entry into the capital account, we will add our $5,000 credit to a zero balance, and we will come up with a $5,000 credit. Notice that we have a circle in the debit column to show that you will never use the debit balance column or the capital account. The last step is to return to our general journal and write the Kim Park Capital account number in the post reference column, which is 310. Remember, this is the last step for posting each transaction. We do not record all of our account numbers at the beginning or at the end after we've posted. We must do this every time we record a transaction from the general journal into the general ledger accounts. Recording a debit amount to an account that has a debit balance. Looking at our general journal, we notice that we have a transaction on the 7th for supplies that needs to be debited for $500. So if we look at our supplies account, notice that on August 3rd, we had a debit for $275, and since that was our first entry, our debit balance was $275. Notice that we have a do not record circle in the credit column because supplies is an asset. Assets increase on the left side, which means our account balance will be on the left side. So now we need to record this transaction on the 7th for supplies into our supplies account and the general ledger. So we will first write the date, then we will record the general journal page number. We will leave the item column blank. Since we have a debit in the general journal for supplies, we will record the debit amount in the first debit column. Remember, the first debit column and first credit column are for transactions only. The last step will be to determine what our new debit balance will be for supplies. Since we purchased supplies for $275 on the 3rd, and we have a debit balance of $275, we need to add on the 7th the $500 to the previous balance of $275. So notice that our new debit balance is $775. The last step is to go back to the journal and write the account number in the post reference column for supplies to show that it has been posted. Again, this is the last step for each transaction. You are not to record all of the post reference columns on a page before posting, nor are you to record all the account numbers in the post reference column after posting. If I see you doing this process, you will lose major points. If you leave the post reference column blank because you are not following the proper procedures for posting, you will lose 1 point for each post reference column that has been left blank. How to repost an amount to an account that has a credit balance. If you look at our general journal on line 9, on August 11th, we paid cash to Supply Depot on account. Notice the account has been debited for $300. When we go down to the accounts payable Supply Depot account in the general ledger, we first notice that there is an entry before the 11th. On the 7th, it was credited for $500 and its balance is $500 credit. So now we need to record on the 11th the payment of $300 to Supply Depot. So the first step, we are going to write the date. Then we are going to write the general journal page number in the post reference column. The third step, we are going to record the debit amount. So we're going to take that $300 debit in accounts payable, and in the first debit column, we are going to write $300. The last step is to determine our new credit balance. Since we have a debit, we are going to subtract the $300 payment from the $500 credit, which gives us a new balance of $200 credit. This means that we still, as a business, owe Supply Depot $200. Notice that there is a do not sign in the debit balance column, because you will never ever use a debit balance for accounts payable, since the increase side is the side that represents the balance side. The last step, we write in our new account balance, and then we will go to our general journal and record the account number for accounts payable Supply Depot in the post reference column. Again, you record the post reference number in the general journal after you finish recording each transaction into the general journal. You do not list all of the account numbers in the post reference column before posting, nor do you record all the post reference account numbers after posting. We post as we post into the general ledger. Again, the reason we do this is that if you get up and walk away and someone else comes in and continues posting, they need to know where you have stopped posting. If you leave the post reference column blank, you will lose 1 point for each section that is blank, because it shows you are not posting correctly. Once you have finished posting all of the transactions from the general journal into the general ledger for the month, notice that in the general journal there are account numbers in the post reference column for each account. This post reference number represents and tells the viewer that each one of these accounts have been posted into the general ledger. Looking at the general journal, we are doing a quick review. The first step is to record the date of the transaction from the general journal into the general ledger. The second step is to record the general journal page number in the post reference column of the general ledger. The third step is to take your debit or credit amount in the general journal and record it into the debit or credit transaction account in the general ledger. The next step is to determine your debit or your credit balance. Those balances are based on the accounting equation, and what determines the balance side is the increase side. If you have a debit balance and a debit transaction, you add to determine your new account balance. If you have a credit transaction and a credit balance, you will add to find the new account balance. If you have a debit balance and a credit transaction, you will subtract to find your new debit balance. If you have a credit balance and a debit transaction, you will subtract to find your new credit transaction or new credit balance. The last step is to go back to the general journal after recording each transaction and posting it into the general ledger, and you will record the account number in the post reference column. You are not to go through the general journal and record all of the account numbers before posting them, and you are not to record all the account numbers after you have posted all the entries into the general journal. You are required to post every time you record from the general journal and post into the general ledger. If you leave a post-reference column blank in the general journal, you will lose 1 point for each blank post-reference column.
The accounting cycle. In Chapter 2, you learned how to identify and analyze source documents. Chapter 3, you learned the second step of the accounting cycle, which was recording transactions into the general journal. Step 3, you now will be learning how to post the general journal transactions into the general ledger. Please make sure you put these to memory, since you will need to know these 3 steps for the test. You have just finished section 4-2. Please open your accounting book to page 101. You will need your working paper page 59 to 61. Please complete the assignment. If you need assistance, please let me know. You have just completed section 4-2. Please show me your work, and then you may continue on with section 4-3.